Hey everybody, just want to do a quick vid on this Carothers Performance Knives, or CPK, Utility Fighter 2. It is quite the knife, and as you see, it comes with a Kydex Sheet. This Kydex Sheet is not just some random Kydex Sheet. This is made by Mash Cat, the gentleman Eric who runs that joint. I think they make the best Kydex Sheaths on the market. You normally spend between 50 and 75 bucks for a sheath from Eric, if I remember what I paid for my Bussy sheaths correctly, and they are great. They're great. And it comes with the tech lock, which is another 10 to 15 bucks depending where you get it. So you're looking at a pretty good amount of money right here that comes already with the knife. These knives aren't exactly cheap. I think I paid around 330 bucks for this knife. I can't remember exactly. I bought it a little while ago. But considering that how much money I saved and not having to buy a sheath, had this been a Bussy knife and I would have had to spend that money back over here, I call it quite a deal. A lot of you may think that that's a lot of money for a fixed blade knife such as this, and some of you may find that to be laughable because you spend quite a bit more. I think it's a very, very good deal considering what you get. You can get Benchmades that it cost about what this cost, and they come with a sheath that is nowhere near as nice. And although I like Benchmade knives and have had many of them over the years, the fit and finish between the handle and the blade has not always been quite high quality I've expected for what I've paid. Whereas this is my 4th CPK, and I feel that I am getting a ton of knife for the money. The fit to finish is always great. The original iteration of this knife had more of a rounded butt, and it looked a little off to me. It kind of looked stubby. It made the handle look short, but it was designed by Nathan Carothers and another gentleman for a specific purposes, utility and fighting, and I'm sure it did great in those roles for the people that need them for these roles. On this one, in the new iteration, they have chopped that slightly and textured around the handle, which I don't believe the original had. I could be wrong, and made it for more of an upside down or ice pick grip, a place to rest your thumb, and it's very comfortable in that grip, although I don't think I'll have much use for it in that regard. I have it for more utility. Hope to God I'm never in a knife fight because I'll probably get my butt handed to me. It is also contoured, as you see, keep you from sliding out of the grip, thinner for your palm, then a palm swell, and a ridge to keep you from sliding forward on the knife very easily. Combined with the choil, it works quite well. I have not used this knife much except for some kitchen stuff to check the edge and make sure everything was fine. But the other 3 CPKs I have just abused and used them for things you wouldn't generally use a knife for, and they don't even show any usage or wear on them. They're amazing, which is why I have bought more and not sold the ones I've had. I've bought other high-end knives and fixed blades like Bussy's and a few other brands I won't get into, and I've ended up selling them all over the years other than Chris Reeve knives. One thing I really like about Carothers knives is the billboarding, or shall I say lack thereof. You get Nathan's signature here, and other than the steel stamp, and that is a 3V, as all 4 of the ones I own are, and you see the triangle denotes his Delta protocol for the heat treat. He tweaked the heat treat on 3V and came up with his Delta protocol, which significantly improves the steel in my opinion, and that of many, many, many other people. It makes the steel almost stainless, which I can attest to. I've used one to field dress deer, several deer, probably a half a dozen over 2 years, and I left them bloody with fat on them, wrapped in a rubber glove for over 24 hours, and there was no staining, rust, or problems on the blade. But underneath the handle, I did get a little bit of blackening of the steel, which was a weird phenomenon. But when I removed the handles to clean all the fat and gook out of the knife, I was able to polish that off with light scrubbing with a paper towel and some soap. And I just waxed underneath the handles for future use so I can avoid that. But unless you're doing really nasty stuff, like maybe if you do use this as a fighter, you'll want to wax under there to keep it from getting rotten. But it's nothing that's going to rust or ruin the integrity of the steel. That aside, I love the diagonal fluting on a handle. It's one of my favorite textures on a handle. That and a quilted pattern, which this one also has, and I like the transition on it. 2 of my favorites for a fixed blade that provide texture and a good feel to a grip without being overly aggressive or causing hot spots. Same with the texturing or jimping or whatever, file work, whatever you'd want to call it. This isn't obviously filed, but around the handle on this and in the thumb ramp, they're not overly aggressive to where they would make a hot spot for you in any way, but they do add a little bit of retention to your grip, a little bit of help with some traction. Very, very nicely done. This one has a bit of an odd profile, but it's a great combination of that utility and fighter. Keeping the tip higher up towards the spine helps it retain the width of the spine, leaving plenty of steel for strength. And if you have to penetrate anything, it's still plenty thin enough and sharp, but also thick enough that the durability remains. Swedge behind there to help with piercing. Higher grind to help with the utility chores, so the blade is thinner down here because the grind is so high up that it makes for easier cutting. And this one is left a little bit thicker behind the edge than the other CPKs that I have, probably to help in making sure you don't damage the edge doing utility tasks with it, but by no means in any way fat to keep it from being quite the slicer should you need this to do the fighting portion or a lot of slicing work. Very, very well thought out, very, very well done. And he used to use blackened screws, and the blackening on my other ones that have that is kind of worn off over use, so I like the change up to the stainless steel. And like I said, I don't need it to be tactical or however you want to look at it, so the shine of that doesn't bother me, and it is quite the knife. I'll probably report back after getting some use out of this one on how it's held up, but I suspect it'll be just like, I expect more than I suspect. I expect that it'll work just as well as the other three I have, and it's quite a deal at that price point. Considering you can spend the $300 or $330, whatever that cost me, on a lot lesser knives with lesser steels and not get that fit and finish, or get a crappy sheath or no sheath at all, and to be able to get this, which is top tier and top level of that top tier for that price, says a lot about what they're doing over there. This isn't a production knife, and it's not a custom knife. I don't know if you'd want to call it a semi-custom, because I don't think they hand fit anything on here. I don't think they're doing hand grinding other than hand sharpening, so I wouldn't call it a custom, but it's by no means production. And when they do a run of knives, they do a limited amount. So if you don't get it, you're going to have to pay a lot more on the secondary market, which brings me to the point of, if you want one, grab it while you can, because it probably won't be there later. And if you have to buy it on the secondary market, you're going to spend a ton of money. And for some reason, if you decide you don't like that knife, keep it for 5-6 months or a year, and then sell it, and you could probably make more than you paid for it. There's no loss on this knife in any way. You could probably use one of his knives for a few years and get what you paid for it, or still make money. So watching the secondary market, I've seen that many times, but if you have a one in good shape, you probably won't lose even $1 on it, should you decide to move it along. I thought that when I bought the first one. I ended up getting a deal on it, and now I'm on my fourth, and I haven't sold any of them. Whereas I sold all the Bussies, all the Swamp Rats, all the other fixed blades except for a Chris Reeve Niala, and they all went the way of the Dodo. And when I reach for a fixed blade now, I reach for a Carothers. So I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for watching, and everybody, take care of yourselves. Try to stay safe. It's getting crazy out there.